These next several tapes, we're going to be talking about the head and the neck. We're going to talk about non-vascular edema and how we can increase blood supply to various structures in the head and the neck. We can actually divide the head and the neck into 4 sections. The neck, the back of the neck, muscular part, the discs, the back of the vertebra. We can talk about the head into 2 parts, the neurocranium, which is the part that encloses the brain and the brain itself, and then the visceral cranium. Now, the visceral cranium is from the nose down through the front of the throat right down to the trachea. And the visceral cranium, from an embryological standpoint, they are formed from the branchial arches, if you remember that, pharyngeal or branchial arches. And these arches, some embryologists say they're like gill arches in a fish, and as embryonic, we get these kind of gill arches coming down. We have 6 of them. Mandibular and maxillary is the first, the hyoid is the second, then the third, the fourth, the fifth, which disappeared, and the 6th. And each of these arches coming down have a cranial nerve in them, have a cartilage in them, have a blood vessel in them, have mesenchyme in them, have mucosa in them, and muscle as well. Knowing the embryological origins of the tissues in the visceral cranium can give us some clues on how to treat various conditions. Dysphagia, like atonia, TMJ, oral facial pain. So we're going to start with the neck. We're going to start with the neck and the TMJ. The fifth cranial nerve has centers in the brain, like all our nerves have centers in the central nervous system. The fifth cranial nerve has centers in the brain, and one of the centers in the brain has a spinal center, which means it's in the spinal cord in the upper cervical spine. Now, a lot of people today have this forward head posture, and this actually affects the trigeminal spinal center, the trigeminal nerve. So this can increase pain or cause increased tension throughout the trigeminal nerve, like tight jaw. So the first procedure we're going to show you regarding the head and the neck is how can we bring this head back. We're going to bring this head back by actually changing the shape of the discs in the upper thoracic spine. If I can change the shape of the discs in the upper thoracic spine and reduce the kyphosis in the upper thoracic spine and reduce the flexion in the lower cervicals, we're going to be able to bring that head back. If we can bring that head back, it's going to start to change the trigeminal nerve center, spinal center. There's 3 or 4 ways we can do this procedure. Here's the first way. I'll have you lying on your back so your head's on my lap. Come back a little bit more. Now we can see our upper thoracic spine's at the fulcrum of the table. Now I'm going to retract the head. Retracting the head, and I'm using this edge of the table as a fulcrum on her about T3 or T4 here. So I'm introducing a force in those discs. I'm introducing a force in those discs that are different than exactly the opposite force of what is in there when you're driving a car or working on a computer or watching the TV. Instead of compression, there's some traction, and instead of flexion, we're extending it. So the force is different, so we're moving the fluid in the discs, and we're reshaping the discs. Discs follow this property of discal creep, so if I introduce a low force for a long period of time, it'll change the shape of the disc. That's just what I'm doing. Now, I always look for the response, eyes open, how are you doing? Okay. You notice I'm not extending the head like this. I'm keeping the head flexed. It's just the lower cervical spine that I'm extending. Pressure on, pressure off. Pressure on, pressure off. I know this section's a head and neck, but it seems to be I'm working in the upper thoracic spine. Just to repeat, if I can change the discs in the upper thoracic spine, it'll bring the head back. Muscle tone in the back of the neck and the front of the neck is going to change. With the forward head posture, some groups of muscles are tight and some of them are inhibited. The tight ones are the upper trapezius is tight, the suboccipitals are tight, the masseter and the muscles of mastication are tight, sternocleidomastoid is tight. The suboccipitals, as I mentioned, and the inhibited groups would be the deep neck flexors are inhibited, lower rhomboids are inhibited. If we can change the shape of those discs and bring that head back, then these tight muscles automatically start to relax, including the muscles of mastication on the jaw. And when they relax and they're inhibited, their antagonists, the inhibited groups, like the deep neck flexors, they'll automatically turn on, become fire more, just by doing this. There's another way we can do this procedure. If the person has a foraminal encroachment in the neck, where they put their head back and the arm gets worse, or they have a really degenerative neck or really bad joint, putting the head back is not that good for the neck. So there's another way we can do this.